welcome to Inside Healthcare. This spring marks 3 years since the COVID pandemic hit, and the latest Minnesota student survey reveals the impact of COVID on the health of our young people, our young students and their families. We welcome back to Inside Healthcare two Minnesota educators who were with us last year to talk about how their students are doing now and what they're seeing in their classroom. So we're very, very excited to have you back and pleased to have you with Lucilla Davila and Tamara Ramirez-Torres. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It really is a pleasure to have you guys. And I know you have very busy schedules, so for you to be here, we're just doubly excited.
And we are as well.
Thank you for having us back, Jody.
So you were here last year and you were talking about how situations were there. COVID was even still around in that. What is going on? What are you seeing with your students and at your classrooms? And Lucilla, talk about maybe the K through the elementary students and stuff.
Yes, I can speak to pre-K-8. So what we're seeing right now after 3 years of the pandemic is there's a lot of learning loss, and we really don't like to talk about the learning loss in that way. However, there is a lot of learning loss with the students, and also the mental health component is there, very evident. So for instance, when we look at third graders right now, so they really didn't have a traditional kindergarten, right, year, nor a first grade year. And maybe the second grade year was a hybrid. So here you have the 3 foundational school years where students now in third grade who will have to now test for the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment. And we're seeing that we really have to do a lot of uplifting within the standards from all the way from kindergarten to second grade to third grade to bring them up to that third grade level of standards, just because they haven't had a consistent foundation, academic foundation. And then when you talk about the emotional component, the social emotional piece, we are seeing that students don't have sometimes the stamina. They're sometimes falling apart, they're crying, the anxiety, the depression, all of those things. So the mental health component is vital too in these grade levels. So it's not just now the academics, it's the social emotional component, it's a mental health component, and then the academics. So we have to have all of those things in place so the student can flourish and do well in the MCAs and also well in school. So that's what we're seeing right now, Jody.
And Tamara, with the high school students?
With the high school students, it's a little deeper. A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. They don't want to be in school. They want to be within their rooms. A lot of hoodie wearing and hiding. So we're having a really tough time with the kids right now to get them back on track because they're not used to being in a classroom. They're not used to being with a lot of kids, so they're being withheld, and it's really a tough situation. We've had the most kids with therapy than we've ever seen before. So, and those are the couple that that kind of reach out, because there's always those that don't reach out, and so it's really tough.
A lot of that was coming out in the latest Minnesota student survey. We do it every 3 years here in Minnesota, and we were really seeing a lot of things that you're just talking about, especially I think the 11th grade girls in particular. Is that what you're also seeing?
Yes. And we're having a really tough time even with the seniors, trying to get them caught up and ready to move on. It's really hard. It's really hard. And we're struggling to make it happen, but they're struggling to try, right? They're trying so hard, and it's really tough. It's really tough.
What we have also seen, Jody, in this area is that even from pre-K-12, we have a lot of students who are more focused on working because the devastation of COVID really affected them financially and their households, and they've had to move or they've been dislocated from their households. So then work is like the priority right now versus school, just because they have to put shelter over their heads for their families and help with that. Also food on the table, taking care of the youngest siblings and so forth. So then again, it's bringing back, if you have your education, that's going to be the fountain of opening you a huge path of having a good job and so forth. But it's right now they only can see that they have to put that food on the table. They have to have shelter. They have to help the younger siblings and their moms and dads at home, which we understand. It's a lot of complexity here. The other piece that we're also dealing with is that we are seeing a lot of the suicide rates
Going up.
because of the depression and
yeah.
anxiety and the use of opioids and drugs and so forth. So, right now, education is hard to be in as a teacher, as a principal, as a leader. Why? Because it's not just one component, it's the whole child. And we have to address the social emotional component, we have to address the mental health component and the academics, and also the connection between home and school. And it's very complex right now, all of the things that the pandemic has, 3 years after the pandemic that we're dealing with.
And then inflation, as you were mentioning too, that impact as well. That the survey talks about not only negative risk, but also positive risk or positive things. Are you also seeing that?
Well, as Lucilla mentioned, the component of the work, to them it's more important to go to work than come to school. And we're struggling, as always, to keep kids in school and to get them into higher education. They're pushing back because they're making money, and that's what's important. They're making money, they're feeding their families, they're helping their families. And so they don't have that vision, that long-term vision, as if you stay in school and you go to college, it'll be better for you in the long run. What they're seeing is the short term. So that's where their focus is right now. And again, keeping food on their table, kids come to school hungry because there's just not enough food. And so that's really important too. And they're sleepy, and that, and as Lucilla mentioned, the opioids and the drugs, and it's just a whole ball of confusion for them. So, and it's hard for us to deal with that, especially if you're not trained to see certain things.
And this was for all students, all ages,
Yes.
and all backgrounds and that. What about specifically for a multiracial population? Even more so?
Yeah, even more so.
Even more so because there's always the immigration status and the fear, right? And so certain jobs, they have to have certain jobs because they don't want to be exposed. And it's just really, really hard on the BIPOC community as we speak.
And talking about the BIPOC community, it is more, it has affected them even more so just because, they're coming from areas maybe sometimes of disadvantage. And we have to really put a wraparound system in school. So this is where the counselors are very important. And one of the things I have to say positively that's coming out of COVID is that we have our counselors being trained, our social workers being trained, our principals and our
Thank
leaders.
Goodness. Well, thank
Yes.
you for you guys and also for them as well, yeah.
And through those trainings and so forth, it's a complex issue, but it's an issue that it's a human issue, right? And we have to deal with it individually, by family, by individual students and so forth. But we are so grateful for our counselors and our social workers and our leaders who are being trained to then help support our students in many different ways, especially to Tamara's point, students who are right now disengaged with school because work is their priority. How do we re-engage them back into school, and how do we reimagine the level of education for our students in a very different way? Because the pandemic has really changed the whole landfill of education right now.
Yeah,
Optimistic?
Oh yes, very.
We're
yes.
optimistic, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of people engaged in the process, right? Educators are doing the most they can. Our leaders are doing the best they can, but we need more people to engage with us and engage in education, especially people of color, right? So that these kids see people helping them that look like them and that can understand them. That's really important.
Nutrition is so important as well, and Minnesota is now going to once again offer free meals to students starting, I think, next year. What does that mean to the students to be able to not have to worry about if they're going to have food to eat?
I want to start, Jody, by commending Governor Walz for taking that initiative and passing that bill, because that is huge for not only for all students, but especially for the BIPOC community as well. So many of our students, when they come to school, they haven't had a meal at home. So the only meals that they have are the school meals, and if they don't have the means to pay for their school lunches and their breakfasts and so forth, that also then puts an equality piece, right, an equity piece at the table that we would have to address. So he's taking all of that off the table and providing free meals for every student, every child in Minnesota. So I commend Governor Walz for that. I'm very excited because when you see a child who is hungry and can't, have a lunch because they don't have the X amount of money to then pay for those lunches, even though, there's so many different programs that pay for lunches, but still, to then just make it equitable across the whole playing field for everyone, that's excellent. And that's going to help a lot our students today.
Yeah, I remember as an elementary school teacher, I had to go out and buy snacks because I knew that there were going to be students in my class that were hungry. And and the newcomers, for example, they were given a school lunch that was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, they never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They don't eat peanut butter and jelly, so they didn't like it, and that was the only thing that they had. They had an apple and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Wow.
When you come from Somalia, you come from other places, and what is peanut butter? It's not familiar to them, so then they wouldn't eat. And so, as teachers, we had to do a lot of going out and finding food for the kids so that they wouldn't go hungry, because then they fall asleep, they have no energy, and so, as an adult, we can't work with a hungry stomach, right? We have to have fuel.
What are the other challenges that you're facing right now in the classrooms?
So we're seeing that students don't have the stamina. Before it was, 6.5, 7 hours a day of curricula, right? And then when they went virtual, it was just only a few hours. So then it's building that stamina, but we're also looking and seeing that the fine motor skills and like for instance, students who didn't even do pre-K. That early pre-K component is vital. And now when we go into kindergarten, we have to then address a lot of the pre-K things that weren't addressed in pre-K because they didn't have that. And so the fine motor skills, the social emotional component, the socialization, how to socialize, building again the stamina, building the even closing the gaps between already academically. Just because you had students who were, some of them were in the pre-K programs, but who are not, and then you see a gap there. So teachers really have to start from scratch with this year, at least with our kindergarten students who did not have the pre-K. So that's one of the challenges that we're seeing. But we're also seeing that families, educating the families, the importance of pre-K and kindergarten, because those are optional years.
So important.
Yes.
And even attending school. You have to come to school every single day. And I make it a joke with my students because, oh, my finger was hurting, so I didn't come to school. Oh, I lost an eyelash, so I didn't come to school. Just to make it funny for them. But it's just trying to get them to come to school every day, because every time they miss a class, they fall behind, right? And so, as Lucilla said, they were doing certain hours a day. Well, after 3, 4, 5 hours, they're done. They're checked out. They're tired. So it's trying to get back into the routine of, 8 to 4, come to school. By 12, they're done. We've lost them. So
I know we're out of time here. We're probably past our time, but just final comments for our viewers, especially a parent watching or a student watching the show.
I would just tell them to encourage their kids to go to school, and don't keep them home. If you don't have to keep them home, they need to come to school.
And what I would say is that school is a safe place to be. It's a place where they're going to be cared for, they're going to be educated for, and they're going to be ready for society. And especially with the demands that our society now is putting on the whole society, right? So therefore, the more they're in school, the better they're going to be. They're going to have free meals. They're going to have a wraparound model. They're going to have people who care for them, educators who are really wanting to maximize their time in school and accelerate their learning, not remediate their learning, but accelerate them as learners. And we welcome everyone to come to school and be present, and that's the safe place to be, is in school.
Wonderful advice, and thank you again for your time. I know you're very, very busy, so it really was a pleasure to have you back with us. So
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jody.
so much. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Well, up next, we'll talk about what is being done to fight hunger here in Minnesota, so stay with us.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. High blood pressure silently affects millions of Americans. Staying on top of your blood pressure is as simple as these 4 easy steps. Self-monitoring is power. Visit manageyourbp.org to learn more.
Welcome back to Inside Healthcare. Did you know that 1 in 8 kids go hungry in America, including here in Minnesota? Food shelves say they are busier than ever. We are pleased to have back with us Maredith Spector, who is with a local Lions Club, to tell us what they're doing to fight hunger in their community and how you can help. So, Maredith, glad to have you back with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I am very happy to return here, and of course very calm to be speaking in front of a huge audience. Hunger is actually a misnomer in the case when you are looking at it from a Lions Club perspective. Hunger is one of the global initiatives that the International Lions Organization is addressing, among others. But hunger doesn't always mean being hungry. So in our community, and I'm just going to say that my Lions Club is located in Woodbury, it is not always that we're addressing people who are hungry, but people who don't have access to nutritious food, or people who are economically not having the proportion of their income readily available to purchase food, and other sorts of things, like in the schools, for instance, people who may come from disadvantaged or marginally funded for their food program are coming without some nourishing snack, for instance. So in our Lions Club, we decided a number of things. We wanted to follow a global initiative and support that within the local confines of our community so that we are taking it locally. So in our club, there are 2 reasons why we're doing that. Were you going to ask that? Okay.
Yeah, so in the month of April here, you have a number of initiatives going on. Why don't you tell us about them?
I do. Okay, we just decided that April was going to be our hunger month, but we have one initiative we're saving for the fall. But let me tell you what's happening this month. During the year, we raise funds, and we apportion those funds to various initiatives in the community to give our donations. So yesterday, because April we have determined is going to be our hunger month, we donated $1,000 to Open Cupboard, which is a food pantry in the Woodbury Oakdale area. And during that time, their funds are used to purchase partnerships with local farmers, or to rescue food, or to simply make some deals with food providers from other organizations.
It's amazing what they could do with that money. You know, it's not just...
I read somewhere that, I think it was on their website, that $45 of a donation will service 25 people coming in for a meal or a cart to feed their family for 2 days.
So very effective.
It's very effective.
That's great that you were able to do that.
That's our one. And number two, we're looking at the proportion of children in schools who may need some access to, let's not say healthy snacks, but perhaps safe snacks to in between the breakfast and the lunch.
What would be a safe snack?
Something that doesn't have nuts.
Oh, yes.
Or a load of sugar. And something that doesn't need refrigeration, because we just can't provide that. But we also decided that we were going to assist that endeavor by focusing on a program that was developed by a local Girl Scout troop. Girl Scout Troop 55128, which is in Woodbury, several years ago developed a program called Snack 833, which is our school district. And what they do is to provide individual packets of snacks in grocery bags. I'm going to show you the kind of bag. And you can purchase boxes of multiple individually wrapped safe snacks. And one by one, you can drop a variety into the bag, which the Lions Club is going to do during their meeting on April 11th. So this is the second year that we are doing this to support the local Girl Scouts initiative, and in turn that goes to schools.
I love that, yeah.
The third thing that we're doing is that we are going to, the very next night on April 12th, have a Culver's Give Back Night. Culver's, which is a restaurant chain, and they are allowing us to come in and reap the benefits of 10% of their proceeds between 5 and 7 o'clock on Wednesday night next week. And we also have the opportunity to run tables. So we become visible in the community as helpers, not just handing checks here and there, but as helpers in the community and doing a good service. We intend that the 10% that we receive is going to be included in our hunger relief programs in the future.
What do you enjoy doing this and being involved with this? I mean, this is something that you spend.
There are two things here.
Yeah.
I personally enjoy being out there in the public, and I don't maybe one-to-one always see the person who is benefiting, but I realize that there is some good coming out of that. And I think that I have been a Lion in other locations and also here, but I think that Lions in general are providing that very same thing on a grander scale, grander than me. I also like the people that I meet or the people that I work with. And so it's a win-win for me.
So you have these initiatives going on, so if someone's not a Lions, they don't live in Woodbury, how can they help?
You don't have to be in Woodbury. There are Lions clubs all over, but that's not the only provider of service for hunger initiatives. So I think that one of the greatest things that you might be able to do, first of all, you're invited to Culver's. Second of all, you're invited to look on the website to look at your community's pantry or food pantry. They are looking for your donations or your volunteerism, because they use volunteers to stack their markets.
Volunteers
or to
are
deliver.
so important. Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, and I understand from the open cupboard that the food shelf that the numbers just have escalated. I mean, the numbers have really gotten large. Yeah.
Oh yes, well,
number of families.
Not only was there COVID preceding, but also you've had inflation, and the cost of purchasing food is just putting people at risk of being able to purchase enough for their family.
And food, as we were saying in our previous, with our previous guests, how important nutrition is.
It keeps their focus, and it helps them. It helps them socially too, because the socialization was another product. It gets noticed who brings what to school.
And I understand not only when I was talking about kids, but also seniors are struggling, is what I'm understanding.
Well, there's
all the communities.
There is another initiative that Hunger Committee has in our Lions Club, and that's done in the fall, where we collect grocery gift cards for Holiday Hope.
Nice.
And designate seniors as the recipients of those gift cards. So hopefully we've got it covered. Hopefully we are becoming more visible in the community as a purveyor of good work in the hunger community.
Well, Maredith, always great to see you. I'm glad to have you on Inside
Thank
Healthcare
you.
again.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. Finally, spring allergy season has arrived, and it is hitting hard around the country, including here in Minnesota, all due to more intense pollen counts. We talked with a local doctor about what you can do if you're struggling with spring allergies.
Dr. Kristi Trussell, great to see you on Inside Healthcare. And you know, spring is here, and we're starting to see spring allergies as well. What are some of the causes of spring allergies?
Well, as the trees and the grass all start to grow again, there's just a lot more pollen and pollen in the air, and that can really affect people.
So what causes the sneezing and the running eyes from the spring allergies?
So allergies are a sensitivity in the body, and that can activate some of the inflammatory processes, you know, runny nose, itchy, watery eyes, congestion.
Can it also cause fatigue or headaches and things, other symptoms?
Sure, particularly if you're having pretty bad sinus symptoms, you could have a headache associated with your allergies.
And how do you tell the difference between, I've heard this from other my friends and family, like, is it an allergy or a spring allergy, or is it just a cold? They obviously, I have a bad cold right now.
Yeah, so a lot of the symptoms do overlap, and sometimes it does require specialist allergy testing to really sort that out. In general, allergies shouldn't cause fever. So if you have fever, that more points to an infectious cause of symptoms. Infections tend to come on and be a more self-limited process. So not, you know, symptoms that go on for weeks and weeks. We think a little bit more about allergies and infections like colds, where it's, you know, 5 to 10 days of cough and congestion that gradually improve, tend to be more viral upper respiratory infection. But there's certainly a lot of overlap in the symptoms.
And how do the allergy medications or medicine work? And how do they
Most
help?
allergy medications are antihistamines, so they block that histamine or allergy response in the body. There's a number of different allergy medications that are available over the counter and are quite effective for folks.
I know a friend of mine said that she went looking for the antihistamines and the shelves were empty. She just couldn't find anything. So what would you recommend? She was saying maybe the sinus rinse might help or something. I don't know what that is exactly.
Well, if there's something that you're looking for and can't find, it's always good to check with the pharmacist. Sometimes they have other recommendations for alternative medications, or even medications that they have behind the counter that they can sell. As far as other home remedies for congestion, you can certainly use steam in the bathroom. Avoiding contact with the allergen is a really sometimes difficult thing to do, but an effective way to limit allergy symptoms. There's a lot of different sinus rinses and things that can help just clear the allergies out. One thing that's helpful, particularly for people with outdoor allergies, is to shower after coming in from outdoor activity, just to rinse all of those allergens and pollen off.
And how can the urgency room help someone with allergies right now during the spring?
Well, we can certainly do an assessment of symptoms and help you determine if we think it's an infection or an allergy, and if it needs a medication, and we can provide advice on symptom control.
Well, that's our program for you. Thank you for joining us here on Inside Healthcare. See you again next time on Inside Healthcare. See you then, everyone.